lot of information to process, I guess, if you haven't been thinking about these things for a while.
Well, I have
Would
been
you?
thinking about
Oh,
them consistently, which, well, doing them more than thinking about them. But I always remembered inside, outside, breath, cognition. That was my words for remembering. And
Perfect.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm finding myself that I've read a book recently on meditation. Now, this is still on the same subject of the four directions.
Mhm.
And he described, while doing seated meditation, to say the word body or hear or see or breath while you're meditating helps bring you back to your body and to those different things. And for the first time in years, I've actually been able to sit in meditation without having an external noise source like
Mm.
white noise or the sound of the wind or something.
Okay.
And I actually just listen and hear, and it has helped me use the four directions more just with those simple words: hear, see, body, breath, and it
Mhm.
is the four directions.
It is.
But
That's a perfect reminder.
yeah, so it's helping because I do meditation in the morning and at night. The middle of the day has got more embodied with these simple things.
Mhm.
These simple words are helping.
Yeah. And to chime in off of that, I had to do the same things. Like, I think there's this erroneous idea sometimes that just because I've been doing this the longest, that somehow I don't have to do it. It's like I have to redirect. I have to tell myself it's almost identical. I think it actually might have been the same words, Ida. These are my four directions. I say it to myself where, this is my attention external. This is my attention internal. And saying it, this is my body, this is my mind, this is my moment. I'm alive. So, no, I think that's great. I do the same thing. So I find it helpful and I'm glad you do too.
That's good. That makes me feel more normal in this practice and what I mean.
I think it would be abnormal if you tried to tell me that you had this robust attention practice, but you didn't need to remind yourself. I'd be like, wow, like might be in the presence of Buddha here. So
No, I haven't got an app for that yet.
yeah, I don't know. I really don't own any nice clothes, so I couldn't like be in the presence of Buddha. I would look like actually, Buddha would be fine with me looking like a bum, right? That's fine. Or in scrubs. Okay. No, I like that. I think that's also a very, and we flesh this out more because we haven't even talked about the redirection technique. And boy, did I need my redirection technique. And that, if anybody watching this has a background in psychology, when we talk about the redirection technique, we're really just talking about self-regulation, a very organized. Why is it organized? Because I just like to organize shit. I do. And if I use that cuss word, I did it intentionally because I really like to organize stuff. I was born that way. That was my constituency coming into this universe is Ernest likes to put things in, and it's not an abstract organization. I don't just organize things for I like it because if I organize something, it's to help me use it better or to remember something. I wouldn't organize the refrigerator, just because, and I don't, because I don't need to. I can just look and I can see what's there. So I don't need to put that in ABC order. So it's not like that. So, so Jerry, Jerry had the question, would you share some of your daily points of attention? I can. That is one thing that is will be different for everybody. And I'm happy to share mine, but again, that's the disclaimer that there's no necessary replication of any one point of attention, or we used to call them tricks of attention. There's no trick of attention, point of attention that needs to be done in one specific way for this system, for this practice to in air quotes work. And by work, I mean present, mindful, deliberate, intentional, ultimately powerful. That's a weird word, but charged with energy. So yeah, I consider. Well, my daily points of attention most recently have been because shit got real for me. I had 11 exams in a very short amount of time. And I don't always like talking about myself. Jerry asked me to share some of mine, so I will. I don't, do my best not to make everything about what I'm doing. But taking 11 exams, 4 of them were finals, 5 of them were comprehensive exams, 3 of them were practical exams, where you're in person doing something practical, and it was a lot. And I wasn't doing it in a vacuum. So I had life. We have a dog that every day there's something wrong with him. We have a world that is just like, in many different ways, batshit crazy. So there's a lot of stimuli, and there's a lot of different things to navigate. So, Jerry, if I tell you what my practice has been, it's going to maybe to an onlooker seem, dare I say, advanced, but that's ridiculous. There's nothing advanced about it. It's just the same thing. I've just been doing it longer, so I have a deeper bag of tools, a bigger toolbox to pull tools out. I think that's a good way to describe it. But I have had to reach into the warrior's way because I chose to live in an extreme, and I am not special. I am subject to the same principles that everybody else is in this universe or in this world. Meaning that if you exist in an extreme, it will cause suffering. And the degree of the extreme will be directly proportional to the degree of suffering. And a lot of times, if not all of the times, that will also be like a triangle of proportion to desire in terms of the suffering. The intensity of the desire will be directly proportional to the intensity of the suffering. How do you know that you're attached to this desire? You're removed from it. How do you respond? So I got kind of attached to this idea of being a good practitioner. I was having hopes and illusions, not of grandeur, of just adequacy. Like I just was hoping to achieve adequacy. And the desire was directly proportional to the amount of suffering. And the desire, of course, is wrapped around all these exams. So I had to reach into my bag of tricks with the warrior's way because it was really affecting my energy. So I had to be very specific with my practice. And so I had to be impeccable with my attention. And for a beginner, I would never use that word, but I had to be impeccable with my intention, or I would have quit. I would have made excuses. I would have allowed myself to fail in a strategic way because of fear. So some of my points of attention while doing all of that, like Ida pointed out, some of it was talking to myself in a certain way, reminding myself of certain principles, especially some of the warrior principles. For example, I have to take responsibility. I put myself here. This isn't, and so Jerry, when I'm starting to feel like I'm gonna, outlash because I'm like, this program is unfair. Well, no, now wait a second. I have to talk to myself. I have to remind myself, which is a part of the redirection. I'm coming back to the present moment. I'm reeling in a stream of thought that was just about to go its own direction. And I'm like, no, wait a second. I gotta bring this back. I have to assume personal responsibility for the sheer volume of thought that I have chosen because I have to study. I have to think. And I'm very deliberate with my mind, so I'm thinking about Chinese medicine, but it still became habitual. It still became repetitive. And eventually I was not feeling well. I was violating every single principle and I suffered for it. But because I have my basic 4 directions, I'm always able to come back to point zero, the actualization point that we would call it at a certain time period. And I would do that with words. So that's my cognition direction. That's talking to myself. That's reminding myself. That sounds like mantras, that type of thing. So that was definitely there. For my cognition direction, which is where I spend most of my time, right? Because it's very easy for me to be aware, and body awareness, tricks of attention, Jerry, are super related to Chinese medicine and my diagnosis, my presentation, because of the overthinking, because of the stress of the program, I had a certain physiological presentation. And so my body awareness are certain acupuncture points and channels. I can't really describe that to you easily, but that's what I was doing. So that's we talk about an internal point of attention can be any point on your body, right? It can be anything, and we say internal, but again, we're just using words so that we can categorize things. But what I'm really talking about is body awareness. And eventually emotional awareness, because that's kind of a mix between certain things that is occurring. But at a certain point, this practice can definitely help someone to be more aware of their own emotional state, which I had to forge a new practice because my emotional state was like, whoa, I need something to help organize my practice to help me with my own emotions. And I did that. So internal attention, cognitive direction. So the cognitive direction, a lot of that is the bubble of perception itself, which is, this is very difficult to describe briefly, but it is the feeling and the sense of filling your snow globe. It feels like a snow globe because I'm not really aware of I'm not. Like I can project my attention a little bit underground, but it's not like a 360-degree. It's not. It feels more like a snow globe. Like I'm aware of the circle above me and then the ground, and then it's kind of, does that make sense? Snow globe? But I'm filling that with my awareness. And that's still the cognitive direction. I even fill it sometimes with a little imagination if I need to really get things going. And so that's where my cognitive direction. I have classics like paying attention to the silence behind the sound and the empty space behind the object and the yin inside of the yang. That's an OG classic for me, so I always go back to that. That's one of my favorites. And so I spend a lot of my cognitive attention there. But also, Jerry, the main thing that I was doing with my cognitive attention, which at times was there had to be some redirection involved, like absolutely, was to redirect back to a state in which I could determine how I feel. And that, of course, is going back towards contentment, because that's how I want to feel. I want to be happy. I want to feel happy. I want to feel content while still working towards a goal. I want to feel content while still having past, present, and future in mind. So content doesn't mean idle. Content means everything that is happening is enough. I can work with this, right? I am okay. My forces are not scattered. They're not overly condensed. They're pretty harmonious at the moment. It's always changing, but not perfect and balanced, but it's balancing okay, right? So a lot of my practice has been creating the cognitive direction to tailor around severe emotional distress, to put that. And a lot of it has been going back to Don Juan and the Warrior's Way, assuming personal responsibility for my time here on earth, using death as my advisor. And what does that mean? It means what Ito was talking about. I talk to myself, remind myself, and then I go back to the space between words. But I was in a state where I had to talk to myself back into that position, just like Ito was talking a moment ago. I have to say these things to myself. Ernest, At any moment, you could, yin and yang could separate. And the earnest that you know ceases to exist at that moment. That can happen at right now. And I'm talking, I tell myself that's my cognitive direction of attention. Breath, I have been doing a lot of unhealthy eating sometimes, not a lot, but I kind of celebrated, so I had some celebration foods and things like that. So I have been paying attention to the diaphragm, which is a cross between two directions, which is cognition and breath, because I'm imagining my diaphragm. I'm almost imagining that someone has their hands placed on my back, like around like maybe my 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th rib. And I'm just breathing into their hands smoothly. So that's where my breath is most of the time. Yeah, I haven't really gotten to an emotional state where it has gotten to affect my breath. So I haven't gone into hyperventilative states. Even right before I took my exams, I was able to, you know, I did some formal practices to help hone that. So I wasn't a mess when I was in an altered state of consciousness for sure, but I wasn't a mess. Um, hmm, that's all four directions, right? Oh, external, right? External attention. So external attention, I mix directions. So I use my imagination in my external environment. So one of my favorite things to do, and it's a classic for me, it's not a habit because it doesn't happen on its own. I have to do it, but it's inclusive vision, including as much as I can in my field of vision. I'm not a big fan of squirrely attention where it's kind of just like going back, and I don't like that for myself. I like my attention to be a little bit more stable. So with my exterior attention, I pay attention to, there's this type of art called UrbX, and it's basically urban environments that people would find uninteresting. You take the picture or you make the painting from a perspective that brings life to it. So I pay attention to the detail in the world around me, but I try to pay attention to, it's easy to pay attention to the beautiful trees and the flowers and all of the magical colors. But what about this crack in the ground? There's a little flower that's starting to come out of and it's the only flower like that in the air. And I'm looking at this, or a garage. I have really taken an affinity for brick garages, that are covered in vines and things like that. So I have selective things that I like to pay attention to, and it's not always the most pretty thing. Sometimes it's the most undervalued, commonly thing, paying attention to what you would normally pay attention to the least. So that's where my four directions has been the most, I think. A lot of Warrior's Way, that's for sure. But I had a lot of stimulus and I needed it. So I had to revert to what works.